Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. I'm Ed Henry in for Rob. My favorite story this week is what President Trump did to the official White House portraits of both Barack Obama and George W. Bush. He moved them to a hidden stairwell where nobody's going to see them. CNN breathlessly reported this like it was so mean, so horrible, when really, it's awesome. A middle finger to the establishment in both parties, which is exactly what we are getting in the second Trump term, ripping up the old playbook to finally drain the swamp and actually fix things. Imagine that. Not letting the left-wing hand-wringing stop him from taking out criminals in our nation's capital. Last night alone, there were 45 arrests, including someone who was wanted for murder. 29 illegal aliens, we're told tonight, were removed. Nice. Cry more, liberals, including this knucklehead. He thought he could get away with throwing a Subway sandwich at a federal agent. Then he ran away like a little child. And of course, law enforcement caught him and charged him with felony assault on a federal officer. It's actually not funny. This came in from the FBI chief, Kash Patel. He got run down right there. Turns out he was actually a liberal working at the DOJ in the government. He was promptly fired by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who's trying to actually protect our nation's capital since she's now in charge of the police force. While the president was busy in the Oval Office today, taking executive action to protect your Social Security benefits from illegals.
To protect our benefits, we've already kicked nearly 275,000 illegal aliens off of the Social Security system. These are people, many of them have already left the country, and yet we were sending them checks all the time.
The man never stops. He's doing all this while preparing to fly to Alaska tomorrow for a one-on-one summit with Vladimir Putin that just may bring peace to Russia and Ukraine. We'll talk about that in a few moments, while also securing the border and remaking the global economy with tariffs, while also somehow finding time to get the homeless kicked out of federal parks to clean them up too. Remember yesterday, the president was over at the Kennedy Center. He must have seen this homeless camp from his presidential limo, the Beast, because today a city dump truck was spotted in the area between the Kennedy Center and the Lincoln Memorial to take out, yes, this homeless encampment. Not a bad day's work. And what are the Democrats up to? Well, D.C.'s mayor is definitely not hard at work tonight cleaning up our city. Muriel Bowser is in Tony Martha's vineyard, where the liberal elite love to rub elbows in the summertime. Sip some Chardonnay, talk trash about Trump. That's what they love. Can you believe how shameless these Democrats are? Some don't even show up for work. And among those who do, all the left does is lie, like Senator Chuck Schumer, who insists Washington is totally safe, without mentioning he has a massive security detail, of course, armed with guns, because he's the majority leader.
Senator, are you scared walking around Washington, D.C. these days?
I walk around all the time. I wake up early in the morning sometimes and take a nice walk as the sun is rising around some of the Capitol and the other monuments and things, and I feel perfectly safe. They're full of it.
Oh, my God. Send in the clowns. That should be the theme song for Democrats, while the president is sending in the National Guard, flooding Washington with federal agents, as you know, with other blue cities to come, making America safe again. The cherry on top, he's gotten Democrats to defend murder and mayhem, all because of Trump derangement syndrome. They have to take the opposite stand on everything. Even MSNBC is finally figuring out the ridiculousness of Democrats supporting criminals.
And the murder rate, you can't keep saying violent crime is down, but the murder rate's up. To the average person, the murder rate's about life and death. You don't brag about a rising murder rate. And the Democrats are, I agree with you, Mika, they're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
It's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. I mean, if it's not a winner politically to say, oh, you're wrong, look at the data. They don't want it. And they'll gravitate to the person who appears to be doing something about it.
It's all a trap. The Democrats take the 20% side of the 80-20 issues, and they're being trapped. The president, meantime, is leading with backbone. This is what is marking his second term in office. The first time, he had all kinds of squishy rhinos whispering in his ear, sometimes colluding with Democrats to block things. Now he goes with his gut and gets results. Just like Newsmax, we hosted a major event yesterday with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, our CEO and founder Chris Ruddy right there, praising that leader's resolve, comparing him to Churchill, while Netanyahu thanked President Trump for sending those B-2 bombers that wiped out Iran's nuclear program. Backbone. My takeaway is the leaders who are dominating this incredible age, this time in our history, they're the ones who have resolve, whether it's shutting down the southern border or sending the new U.S. attorney, Judge Jeanine Pirro, to clean up these decrepit Democrat-led cities from subway sandwich throwing miscreants.
The other night, when an individual went up to one of the federal law enforcement officers and started jumping up and down, screaming at him, berating him, yelling at him, and then he took a Subway sandwich about this big and took it and threw it at the officer. He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony, assault on a police officer, and we're going to back the police to the hilt. So there. Stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
Stick it somewhere else. She's pretty tough. Democrats deny the reality right before everyone's eyes. The president told reporters this week, the opposition party has gone crazy and are stuck. They don't know what to do next. All the Democrats are doing now is calling the president a dictator because he sent in the National Guard. I guess they forgot that a Democrat, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, did the same thing last year, saying she was cleaning up New York City subways.
My job is to keep people safe. I have to, any way I can, I'm going to keep New Yorkers safe. And I'll tell you who does show appreciation for the people out there on the streets. I've been walking the streets. I walk into business. People are just saying, thank you for taking such strong action. I needed to do something dramatic and quickly to send a message that you will not get away with committing crimes in our subways.
The Democrats said to the National Guard, thank you, thank you. Trump does it. He's a dictator. As I said, send in the clowns. Like the clown over at MSNBC a couple nights ago who claimed climate change is a bigger threat to your kids. When then there's the district attorney from Philadelphia. He should be chasing bad guys. Instead, he's on CNN attacking the president over January 6th.
I think the bottom line is that President Trump doesn't like public safety. He's a convicted criminal himself. He pardons people who are criminals and do pretty dastardly things, like cause the deaths of 5 different law enforcement officers during January 6th. There is no indication that this man is in favor of law-abiding behavior or public safety, but he is in favor of power. He is in favor of fascism. He is in favor of ending democracy.
Nothing that he just said is true about January 6th or about the president. No wonder Philly is a crime and drug disaster. Even worse, a sitting Democrat congresswoman, Delia Ramirez, recently went on foreign soil and actually pledged her loyalty to Guatemala over America.
Well, Tom Homan, let me tell you, all over the country, we will continue to stand up for our rights, and we will continue to call out the terrorist organization that is ICE.
It's not a terror organization. ICE agents are saving minority families from criminal illegals in cities like LA, Chicago, New York. They're not terrorists, but the Democrats, in many cases anyway, they are clowns. Joining us live is Stephen Sund. He is the former chief of the U.S. Capitol Police Force. Chief, first of all, welcome. I assume Senator Schumer, you would know, has a big Capitol Police detail protecting him when he walks to look at the sunrise in Washington. So does Nancy Pelosi. Yet they don't always seem to want to back the blue. Why is that?
You know, why they don't want to black blue, I don't know, but you're absolutely right. He does have a security detail that moves with him. And, you know, this whole initiative that they're talking about in Washington, D.C., this is about protecting the most vulnerable. And some of the things that I'm seeing people say on TV is absolutely ridiculous.
So what is the truth then? Because you spent 25 years patrolling these streets in Washington. 800 National Guardsmen are now at the ready. Federal agents we see patrolling the streets, actually arresting people. In your opinion, how has it gone so far, and what else would you recommend to the president gets done? What else needs, what other steps?
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Ed. And I'll say I did spend a little over 25 years with the D.C. police patrolling the streets. Been involved in a number of these federal type of initiatives. We've done this type of stuff before, safe streets, summer crime initiatives. The only difference is this time you have the President Trump invoking Section 704 of the Home Rule Act, and that's what's gotten everybody up in arms. You have National Guard out there. You have all the federal agencies doing it. You had talked about it up in New York. They did the same thing in Baltimore, 2015. 2015. They put armed National Guard out there. These National Guard aren't even armed right now, but they're out there to protect the most vulnerable. What people don't realize, DC Police, an agency that's authorized for 3,900 officers, is at a 50-year low. They're at least 800 officers short, if not more. Crime is high. Juvenile crime, they've just gotten so just blatant in their crime, and they'll commit crimes right in front of officers. It's terrible what's happened. And when you talk about the effectiveness, this morning the stats I heard were 103 arrests, 24 firearms taken off the streets of Washington D.C. That's substantial. And anytime you have a big anytime you have a big task force like this, it takes time to get organized. This was kicked off with a cold start Monday. It takes time to put it together. They're getting in their stride right now. They're into 24/7 operation.
It's only been a couple days.
It's only been a couple of days.
Pardon me, it's only been a couple of days. But I want to get to something you just said. So you probably served under several different mayors there in Washington over those 25 years, Metropolitan Police Department. And part of the reason why you're 800 or 900 officers short right now there in D.C. is because they haven't backed the blue. They've all been Democrats running the city. And the current mayor, Muriel Bowser, a couple days ago, was on some town hall with her constituents and her supporters saying that we need to fight Trump. We got to beat him in the midterms, as if she was going to be there in the fight. And now she goes to Martha's Vineyard tonight, says she has a family commitment. We all know people go up there and party, the liberal elite, in the summertime. What do you think about the mayor leaving town, not even being there as the president leads this effort to clean up the city?
Well, this is a critical time for Washington, D.C., and I think that all of the city government should be involved in the push. And it's not a good look for her to leave right now. But I'll tell you, you also have major issues with many members of the city council. The city council since 2020 has passed significant anti-police, pro-criminal legislation that needs to be repealed. That right there is the number one reason you saw crime start to rise in the 2020, 2021, 22. Because officers' hands were being handcuffed by these anti-police council members and members of the government.
Absolutely.
That's got to change.
Absolutely. I'm running out of time, but 30 seconds. We talked about the National Guard. You, as Capitol Police Chief, recommended to the then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, before January 6th, I think on January 3rd, we need the National Guard. And she refused that, and the Democrats never admit it. Why is that important?
It's critically important because federal law required me to go and seek permission from the Capitol Police Board, which is made up of the Speaker of the House, the appointee of the Speaker of the House, Sergeant Arms of the House and Senate, and the Architect of the Capitol.
Yeah.
I was refused twice on January 3rd, which is Saturday. Then I was refused for 71 minutes while we were under attack on January 6th. That is critical because those were fatal delays. Congress has now said in their report that if they had approved Chief Sun's request ahead of time, chances are the Capitol would have never been breached. We wouldn't be talking about January 6th right now.
Yeah, maybe they had a political narrative they were trying to push. Chief, we appreciate your service to this great country. Thanks for your time tonight.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Ed.
All right. Meantime, as we mentioned at the top, President working to restore order in our nation's capital, but also trying to show strength on the world stage. We got a big historic meeting. We'll be covering it live tomorrow night right here on Newsmax. It's set the stage now in Anchorage, Alaska tomorrow, one-on-one with Russian President Vladimir Putin, as this president looks to end another war. He's already brought peace all around the world. Here was the president a little bit earlier previewing things.
We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great.
It'll be great. The president planning, as you heard, to use this summit to maybe set the table for another meeting. He says it would come quickly, the trilateral one, with the Ukrainians joining as well. The president admitting earlier today there's a 25% chance that the meeting will not go well, but that he'll know very quickly, saying he can read the room within the first 2 minutes.
I think that it's going to be very interesting. We're going to find out where everybody stands, and I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future.
Imagine that. Putin knows, by the way, he needs this president in his corner. Most of the world's against him. He desperately wants to be one of the most dominant leaders on the world stage. A picture shaking hands with Donald Trump making peace. Boy, that would get him closer to that kind of status. Plus, the Russian economy is in bad shape. More sanctions from the U.S. would be devastating. Putin needs President Trump more than the president needs Putin. So joining me now is Alex Plitsas. He's a former Pentagon official and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Alex, we appreciate you coming in. It's a long way for the president to fly, several hours to Alaska, and potentially come up empty-handed. He says there's a 25% chance of that. If he can squeeze Putin on sanctions, given the economic situation in Moscow, do you think that's enough to get Putin to finally agree to a ceasefire and get peace on track?
I think that's a great question. That's ultimately the question that needs to be answered, and I think we're going to find out tomorrow. So Putin agreed to this, and we saw a tone shift after the president threatened secondary sanctions. So it's pretty clear that President Putin and the Russian regime knows that those secondary sanctions on the economy would be devastating, or else they wouldn't have agreed to this. I think the president has shown patience to date, more so than I think some folks would have liked, but it was in the hopes of the pursuit of peace. And he finally realized, after sticking his hand out and Putin slapping it away, that he was being given lip service, and I think he's done with it. So Putin has a chance tomorrow to come to the table with a realistic approach and offer for peace that President Trump can relay to President Zelensky and hopefully get a trilateral meeting afterwards. But if he comes to the table with the same nonsense and lip service, and the president will see through it, like he said, that meeting is going to end very quickly, and Russia's economy is going to have some pretty significant impact in the short term.
Yes, and if it doesn't go well, we all hope that it does. I'm thinking back to another critical moment with Iran and Israel, where the president had put them together on a ceasefire, and then they started attacking each other again several weeks back. And the president, you remember, addressed reporters before getting on Marine One and said, "I'm mad at both sides. They don't know what the bleep they're doing." And very quickly, that punch from the president brought everyone together. How critical is this man at the center of it?
I think it's extremely critical. I mean, we saw a similar punch, on social media not that long ago after you had the former Russian president who stepped in between Putin's terms of what's now been, a quarter of a century of Putin's
Medvedev,
rule.
yeah.
And, yeah, exactly, Medvedev. And he made some comments, about nuclear weapons, and President Trump finally had enough. And so he slapped back very publicly and made it clear that we're not going to tolerate that kind of bullying and language, because the Russians have been allowed to get away with more than they should. And again, he's really been working hard to try to achieve peace and really not try to push them. And they've taken advantage of it, and he's had enough. So he really is the key to the center of this between the two leaders.
Yeah, last thing, got less than 30 seconds. Putin seemed to raise the stakes more by saying he thinks there could even be a nuclear arms deal here. Does packing on the agenda beyond just peace in Ukraine help matters or complicate things?
Well, I think President Putin, as he's looking at the situation, first of all, he's also bringing his finance minister with him. So I think between the nuclear arms deal, which President Trump tried to get in his first term, and then the potential for economic deals, I think Putin is trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink and trying to prevent sanctions from happening. So it's pretty clear that that is a real stick that the president has in his hand. And so Putin better not overplay that tomorrow. He's going to find himself on the receiving end, and he's not going to be happy about it.
You seem to be suggesting the president has the cards. We shall find out tomorrow about this time, live here on Newsmax. Alex, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, meantime, as Gavin Newsom gears up for a 2028 presidential run, he claims he's saving democracy with his redistricting fight. We'll talk about it next with Matt Schlapp.
Buyers are seeking a used or a certified pre-owned car in order to get the most for their money. That is a very smart move. There are some risks, however. Carfax recently found that over 2.7 million used cars advertised online had been recalled for problems that were never fixed. Of course, it bears mentioning that car reports cannot list all the possible accidents, flood damage, repairs, and recalls, nor whether they were performed on that vehicle or not. Many car reporting companies sell used car reports that list all related recalls as well as accidents and repairs tied to the car's vehicle identification number or VIN. A used car can be a very smart investment if you follow these simple used car buying tips. Before setting out on the first test drive, visit the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website. You can search for recalls on your prospective ride. When you've found the right car, buy it through a dealership, but not just any dealer. Try to purchase it from an authorized dealer who offers certified used vehicles. Ask for a report on the vehicle. Have an ASE certified technician check out the vehicle thoroughly before making the offer. Here's the bottom line. Never be afraid to walk away from an automobile deal that is just not right for you. I'm Lauren Fix, the car coach for Newsmax TV.
When Rosa Parks stepped on that Montgomery, Alabama bus on December 1st, 1955, she didn't set out to make history. She just wanted to get home. Montgomery's segregated buses had divided seating, white passengers in front, colored passengers in the back. When the bus driver needed more seats for his white passengers, he ordered her and 3 others to vacate their seats. The others complied and moved, but Rosa quietly refused and was quickly arrested. Working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa's arrest sparked a highly effective citywide protest with African Americans boycotting city buses. Rosa's protest and resulting boycott didn't end segregation, but it sparked a movement that ended the racial system, paving the way for a more equal society. You're watching An American Moment.
Welcome back. I'm Ed Henry, filling in tonight for Rob Schmitt. California Governor Gavin Newsom gearing up for a 2028 presidential run, but making America California, not exactly a winning slogan. So he's trying all kinds of other sneaky maneuvers, making himself front and center in the redistricting fight, threatening to basically turn every Republican seat to the Democrat column to steal the U.S. House in the midterms. Here he was earlier today, claiming what he's doing is different than what's going on in Texas and that it's President Trump who's trying to rig elections.
This is the difference between what's happening in Texas and what's happening here in California. We didn't receive a phone call from the President of the United States to then quietly go in the back room and start drawing maps and legislatively try to jam them through against the consent of the people. We're doing precisely the opposite. They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides because they know what Donald Trump knows. He's going to lose the midterms. He knows de facto his presidency ends in 17 months.
Obviously, Newsom is lying, no matter how he spins it. His own people in California are against him. New poll from Politico showing 64% of voters there prefer to keep an independent line drawing panel to determine the House seats, while 36% back returning congressional redistricting to state lawmakers. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins us live now with more on this. Matt, always great to see you. You know, this guy goes on Charlie Kirk's podcast a couple months ago and suggests he's against men and women's sports, then flips on that. Last week, he was for an independent panel to decide redistricting. Now he wants to steal all the seats, and he thinks voters in middle America are going to trust him?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the best the Democrats have these days. I mean, this whole redistricting question is really phony. Democrats and some Republicans like Arnold Schwarzenegger and others said, oh, let's get the politics out of redistricting. We'll come up with an independent commission. We'll have a process for picking people to serve on that commission, and that's how we'll do our maps. And lo and behold, it turns out that getting the politics out of redistricting is not what the Democrats want at all. They want to put the politics back into redistricting, so you don't get the cake, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. If they're going to gerrymander their districts, then they got to stop criticizing other states who want to gerrymander in their states. And let me just make something really clear. This whole term gerrymander is kind of a silly, almost a 200-year-old term. What it means is one party optimizing their seats in the state every 10 years after we have the census. And quite honestly, as a free market guy, I'm good with states drawing the district lines according to the politics of that state. And if that means they optimize their number of seats, great. And let me tell you, There are 13 or so Democrats sitting in districts that Donald Trump won last cycle. They want to go through a bunch of redistricting. Republicans will come out the beneficiary of many, many, many more seats than Democrats will.
Yeah, and what do you make of Newsom lecturing us, and in Illinois, Pritzker, who also wants to run for president, a billionaire who's got maybe the worst gerrymandering going on. They're lecturing Donald Trump and the rest of us about being fair in this process.
Yeah. Yeah, the other problem here, Ed, is that, think about it, it's like you only have so many beans that can fit into a sack, or you pick your favorite food or dry good. And they can say, like Gavin Newsom is saying, he's going to pick up 6 more seats in California, but in order to add those Democratic votes to those 6 current Republican congressional seats, he has to take Democrat votes out of other districts, right? Which makes them more marginal. So these Democrats, what they're really doing is beating their chests and trying to act like they'll be really tough on Trump. But as I said, if we go through a series of redistrictings all over the country, it's the Democrats who are going to come out the losers. The fact is that they're very lucky that they've held so many seats that Donald Trump won in. And it comes down to this midterm is going to come down to some very basic things. Number one, do you believe Donald Trump has done a better job on overseeing the economy than Joe Biden? And is the world in a better place because people fear America again? I'll take our odds on making those arguments.
Yeah, on top of that, the secure border as well. Matt Schlapp, great points as always. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, meantime, coming up, President Trump wants the Russia hoaxers taken care of, as in maybe prosecuted, as more explosive documents keep getting declassified. We break it down with Judicial Watch's President Tom Fenton. He is live next.
They're sick people, and they're criminals, and they should be taken care of.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Since the beginning annals of history, the Middle East has always been a center for conflicts, intrigue, and war. So it was again on August 2nd, 1990, when Iraq's then-President Saddam Hussein ordered his armies to invade Kuwait. His objective? The oil-rich fields of Rumalia. It took 5 months of failed negotiations before the United States and its European and Arab allies abandoned their diplomatic efforts and initiated military actions against the invading Iraqi forces. On the evening of January 16, 1991, President George Herbert Walker Bush addressed the nation.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. These attacks continue as I speak.
The largest Allied coalition since World War II was amassed under the command of General Norman Schwarzkopf. Known as Stormin' Norman, he led over 500,000 troops with military forces primarily from the United States, Britain, and Saudi Arabia, along with logistical and financial support from an additional 31 nations. President Bush was quick to make known the Allies' clear and limited objectives. Known to history as either the Persian Gulf War or First Gulf War, it marked the beginning of frontline reporting by embedded news reporters from around the world, providing their viewers with live pictures of ongoing battlefield actions. Anticipating the Arab nations opposing him would refuse to fight alongside their archenemy, the Israelis, Hussein launched Scud missile attacks against Israel, hoping to draw them into the conflict. But the U.S. quickly deployed to Israel the new Patriot missile interceptors, which for the first time were used successfully on the battlefield. In the end, Israel stood back. Within 100 hours of the ground forces launching their assault, the war was over. But not before Saddam Hussein had ordered the destruction of the very oil fields he sought. 1 week following the cessation of fighting, President George Herbert Walker Bush addresses Congress and the nation.
As president, I can report to the nation, aggression is defeated, the war is over.
For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American moment.
Whenever news news breaks.
A lot of destruction there. It was really the front lines in the battle.
And wherever it happened.
And humanitarian corridors opened up this morning.
We're trying to go rescue a 96-year-old lady that doesn't have anybody to take care of her.
They're using ingenuity. They refuse to give up.
It's incoming fire. Come on. Yeah, let's get down here.
Newsmax is there for you.
They declassified some terrible documents talking about Democrats and what they did. Radical left lunatics. It's incredible what we're finding. Absolute proof of guilt. And we'll see what happens. But Clapper and Comey and that whole group of criminals, they're criminals. It was a whole scheme to try and demean Trump so that I couldn't win an election. And that is a criminal group of people. They're sick people. And they're criminals, and they should be taken care of.
President Trump speaking for a lot of Americans right there who are demanding accountability for this years-long Russia hoax scam. This after newly declassified emails, bombshells really, that are coming out. The DNI, James Clapper, back in 2017, manufacturing an intel assessment on supposed Russian interference, directing officials to, quote, compromise the normal process, saying that they all needed to be on the same team, despite concerns from then director of the National Security Agency, Mike Rogers. Clapper responded in an email saying about Russian collusion, "That's our story, and we're sticking to it," as if the facts didn't matter. It was all about the narrative. Meantime, newly declassified memos also contain allegations that the then FBI chief James Comey leaked classified material to the New York Times through a friend. He used a special conduit to the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times in his bid to polish his image and push for a special prosecutor to take down President Trump. It's all very sick. The story adds, Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman admitted to agents in interviews at the FBI that he routinely communicated on behalf of Comey, his longtime friend, with New York Times reporter Michael Schmitt. And let's not forget about Adam Schiff. We now know that a whistleblower, a Democrat, working for them on the Intel Committee, told the FBI in 2017 that the then congressman approved leaking classified material, which is against the law, all in an effort to frame Trump. If true, it would be a felony. So are we going to do something? Dom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch. He's been at the tip of the spear in exposing a lot of this from day one. He joins us live. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, good to be with you, Ed. How are you?
President Trump says, I want these people taken care of. Your reaction to the newly declassified material, because some people are saying, particularly what Clapper said, is almost a smoking gun.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of a whole military's worth of smoking guns in these documents. The challenge for the Justice Department and the FBI is that there's nothing new here in the sense that the core crimes have long been known. We knew they messed with the intelligence assessment 6-7 years ago. We knew Comey and his friend Richman. Comey took FBI files about Trump and leaked them through his friend Richman. These were classified documents he stole, given a free pass. So now we have further details on it. Schiff was known to be a leaker and a liar. Nothing was done. We filed an ethics complaint against them. Republicans didn't do anything. So the question is, what, if anything, can be done now? Maybe there's some perjury charges. Maybe there's this conspiracy theory that works, this conspiracy theory of the case that brings these crimes forward. Of course, President Obama might have some protection as under immunity. I'm a little bit fearful that not much will be done. Maybe some folks will be prosecuted for perjury. I'm as much concerned about what happened last year and why nothing's been done on that as what happened 7-8 years ago. President Trump was
in terms of lawfare, against President Trump.
Secret Service protection. Obama threatened Biden, according to press reports, in order to get him to pull out of the campaign. The lawfare against Trump. None of that seems to be on at least on the hot plates there at the Justice Department. And I don't think the Justice Department FBI can do it.
Right. So pardon me, in the last minute we have then, you're painting a picture of somebody who's been in at the beginning that we've heard this before and maybe nothing happens. The counter to that is John Solomon is reporting, as you know, that there might be multiple grand juries right now in places outside D.C. where you got a left-wing jury, and this conspiracy case has a longer statute of limitations, might be going on in Florida, Virginia, Pennsylvania, other states. You have any hope that there'll be criminal charges that stick with any of those grand juries?
You know, I heard a lot of the same arguments about U.S. Attorney Durham, and I'm hopeful something different happens. If I were President Trump, I'd run the investigations directly. He can't. Look, the Justice Department just had to fire an employee for assaulting a federal police officer. That's the group that they're going to have to rely on. He should take it out of those agencies and run it himself.
Got it. All right, Tom Fitton with a reality check tonight. We appreciate it, Tom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Meantime, the president's immigration crackdown, turns out it's more successful than the media has told you, even better than predicted. You won't believe how many people have already been deported. We've got the numbers next.
A legendary U.S. Supreme Court justice once said, "You do what you think is right, and then let the law catch up." A descendant of slaves, Thurgood Marshall, who later changed his name to Thurgood, was born in Baltimore on July 2, 1908, to William Canfield Marshall, a railroad porter, and Norma Erica Marshall, a teacher. While attending Lincoln University, the future Supreme Court justice was suspended twice for pranking and hazing his fellow students. In his freshman year, Marshall opposed the integration of the university's African-American professors, resulting in him being labeled rough and ready, loud and wrong by his fellow classmates. However, as a sophomore at Lincoln, he supported a local anti-segregation protest and joined Alpha Phi Alpha, the nation's first all-black fraternity. Although his mother pawned her wedding ring to help pay for his tuition, Thurgood Marshall earned his law degree from Howard University with an LLB magna cum laude. Following graduation, he opened his own law office and began his association with the NAACP, eventually being named their chief counsel for the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. While serving as their chief counsel, Marshall argued 32 cases before the Supreme Court, 29 of which he won. President Kennedy appointed Thurgood Marshall to the United States Court of Appeals in 1961. 4 years later, President Johnson appointed him United States Solicitor General, where he won 14 of the 19 cases he championed and called it the best job I've ever had. Then on the 13th of June, 1967, President Johnson nominated Marshall to a seat on the United States Supreme Court, making him the first African-American justice to serve on the nation's highest court. While serving on the court, Marshall was considered a liberal justice intent on championing the rights of criminals, supporting the right to abortion, and denying the constitutionality of the death penalty. After 24 years on the Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall retired in 1991 and later died of heart failure on January 24, 1993, at the age of 84. You're watching An American Life on Newsmax TV.
Abraham Lincoln began the war between the states with a single stated purpose: to preserve the Union. So it surprised everyone when in July of 1862, President Lincoln announced his intentions to issue an Emancipation Proclamation to free the Southern slaves. Lincoln was urged to delay his proclamation until the Union Army could boast a battlefield victory. That opportunity came at the Battle of Antietam, when Union forces drove Lee's army out of Maryland. 5 days later, on September 22, 1862, President Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, stating slaves in those areas still in rebellion within 100 days will be freed. This action made slavery the focus of the war and ultimately caused France and England to withdraw their support of the South. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
Big new numbers from the Center for Immigration Studies out tonight. The foreign-born population in America down 2.2 million. This during the January to July period, or basically since the president's taken office. Illegal aliens make up 1.6 million of that, according to the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. That means 1.6 million illegals have already been deported in just a few months. The president's mass deportation agenda is working, and it's probably only going to pick up more steam as the presidency goes on. Joining me now live, Stephen Camarati. He's the Director of Research at the Center for Immigration Studies, and the great Art Del Cueto. He's the Vice President, of course, of the National Border Patrol Council. Good to see you both. Thank you for your service. Art, Stephen, what do these numbers mean to you tonight?
Well, I think what they mean is that enforcement works, that it looks like, as best we can tell, there's been a big increase in people leaving the country, and of course, fewer coming in, which we already knew. So just to remind your listeners, this isn't the total number of people who got deported. This is the number who got deported and left on their own. And the left on their own makes up a lot bigger percentage. So what that shows is people say, well, you'll never deport everyone. But that's like saying you can't control the speed limit on a highway because you can't pull everyone over. But as everyone knows, when you start enforcing the law, you pull a few people over, everyone slows down, everyone changes their behavior. And we're seeing early signs of that in a big way.
Yeah, Art, seems like a simple concept, but the Democrats have been fighting this for years to actually have deterrence. It comes, by the way, these new numbers as the Trump administration is putting pressure on other countries like Mexico to turn over to these cartel leaders, Mexico handing over more than 20 of them. How significant is that? 26 cartel members to America in this deal. I mean, it feels like they're feeling the pressure, and Mexico had the threat of potentially the U.S. military crossing the border and finally going after these. The president is getting results, no?
Look, I'm very happy that you said that, and I'm happy you're making that point. Because make no mistake about it, this happened because of the president that we have in the United States right now. This happened because of the pressure that President Trump has put on other countries. He's showing that, hey, we're going to enforce the laws. You can't just get away with it. And if you've caused harm to our laws, you are going to face some kind of, consequences for it. I know a lot has been gone back and forth. And yeah, I'm happy that Mexico is willing to help out and they're willing to, assist with these extraditions. But the reason they're happening is because of President Trump. Let's give credit where the credit should go.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, react to this as well. The idea that Gavin Newsom, we said it at the top, was having this big event on redistricting in Los Angeles, and the president's team sends out the Border Patrol in Los Angeles outside the venue, Stephen. And here's Newsom complaining about the Border Patrol and ICE being outside. Watch.
Right outside, at this exact moment, are dozens and dozens of ICE agents. Donald Trump, you think it's coincidental? No. Donald Trump and his minions, Tom Homan, tough guy, clearly decided, coincidentally or not, that this was a location to advance ICE arrests.
Stephen, what's he got to hide?
Well, the thing is, look, I don't know much about this particular operation, but consider this. California, and with Newsom's approval, all over the state, for example, when an illegal immigrant gets arrested and is in one of their jails, they've been identified when their fingerprints get sent in, for example, when the immigration service says, hey, hold that person, we want to pick them up, they say no. The state does everything from give in-state tuition to driver's licenses and do everything it can to impede immigration enforcement in that state. And that's outrageous. And that's what's been going on there for years.
Yeah, last thought from you, Art, because it's unbelievable to me that a governor of a state will not enforce the law. He's complaining, oh, they got these thugs out there. They are enforcing the law, my man.
What world are we living in where the individual that's supposed to be in charge of making sure that the citizens of his state are well taken care of is having a rally and he's bad-mouthing Border Patrol agents and ICE, my heroes in green. And then he decides to call Tom Homan a tough guy. Look, this man, he couldn't lace Tom Homan's shoes and he's out here trying to be a tough guy in his own little, soapbox. What the men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE are doing is making sure that America is safe, that our borders are safe, and that those that have laughed at our immigration laws are brought to justice. That's what it is.
Yes. Newsom wants to be president. He can't even lace Holman's shoes. Love it, Art.
Absolutely.
Steven, thanks for the time. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
All right, we're just getting started. Coming up. Good to see you. Chuck Schumer says, don't believe Republicans. D.C. is like totally safe.
I feel perfectly safe. They're full of it.
Well, he's got people with guns protecting him. We further dispel his lies. Plus, Hunter now peddling lies against the First Lady. How despicable. Claiming that Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to the president. He got a big legal response from the First Lady, a threat of $1 billion lawsuit. Is he going to apologize?
That's not going to happen.
Ever since I picked up a basketball, I just wanted to play in the NBA. That's all I knew. That's all I thought about. But I never knew I was good enough. I just knew it was something I wanted to do. And if I wasn't good enough, I was going to make myself good enough.
Born August 23, 1978 in Philadelphia, PA, Kobe Bryant was the youngest of 3 children and the only son of former NBA player Joe Bryant. Joe Bryant moved his family to Italy, where Kobe learned to speak Italian fluently when he was only 6 years old. At age 13, the Bryant family returned to Philadelphia, where Kobe attended Lower Merion High School. All 4 of his high school basketball years were record-breaking, culminating in 1995 when Adidas named him Senior MVP of the Year. Kobe Bryant chose not to pursue college and instead went directly to the NBA draft. As he was only 17 at the time, his first contract for $3.5 million had to be co-signed by his parents. At the time, Kobe was the youngest player in the NBA and spent the next 20 years with the Los Angeles Lakers. In November of 1999, Kobe Bryant met 17-year-old Vanessa Lane and fell in love. In May of 2000, they married here at St. Edward the Confessor Catholic Church in Dana Point, California. In 2003, the superstar was arrested on charges of sexually assaulting a 19-year-old employee at this lodge and spa in Colorado. Charges were dropped when the plaintiff refused to testify and chose an out-of-court settlement. Basketball legend Kobe Bryant, along with his 13-year-old daughter and 6 friends, boarded a helicopter at 9:06 a.m. on January 26, 2020. 34 minutes later, the helicopter slammed into a hill above Calabasas, California, killing all on board.
Once upon a time, there was a young basketball player who had dreams of becoming one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
You're watching An American Life on Newsmax TV.
From the moment Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, Newsmax was there.
We have some major breaking news. Israel launches strikes, preemptive strikes, almost 4 in the morning.
Israel has decided enough's enough.
What happened tonight was inevitable.
Something just caught my attention of, it sounds like afterburners overhead.
Reporting multiple explosions across the capital, Tehran.
I'm in a shelter now. There's 6 of us.
Benjamin Netanyahu has come out to make a statement.
Our fight is not with you. Our fight is with the brutal dictatorship. We have risen like lions to defend ourselves.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Whenever the biggest news breaks, Newsmax is there for you because we're real news for real people.
At 9:47 a.m. on the 20th of February, 1962, Lieutenant Colonel John Glenn Jr. of New Concord, Ohio, found himself sitting on top of an Atlas 6 rocket filled with 600,000 pounds of fuel. At liftoff, 360,000 pounds of thrust hurled the massive rocket and its occupant into space and America's history books. John Glenn became the 4th human being to enter space and the first American to orbit the Earth. For his remarkable heroism, President Kennedy awarded Colonel Glenn NASA's Distinguished Service Medal.
As our knowledge of this universe in which we live increases, may God grant us the wisdom and guidance to use it wisely. Thank you, Colonel.
Glenn went on to become the United States Senator from Ohio. and in 1984 ran for the Democratic presidential nomination, but lost to Walter Mondale.
Time now for news from the left. Democrats want you to believe somehow Washington is like totally safe. No one's getting mugged, stabbed, or shot. Don't believe your lying eyes and ears. Just listen to Chuck.
Senator, are you scared walking around Washington, D.C. these days?
I walk around all the time. I wake up early in the morning sometimes and take a nice walk as the sun is rising around some of the Capitol and the other monuments and things, and I feel perfectly safe.
Yeah, Schumer's got the morning stroll. Everything's swell, especially the guys around him with guns. But keep in mind, this same guy tried to convince you, when he says, walking in D.C. is safe, he's the guy who tried to convince you, it was like Memorial Day or something, that he's a regular guy who likes grilling, except he forgot before posting the photo. Literally nobody puts cheese on a raw patty unless they want to, die or something. Schumer would tell you it's warm in a blizzard. Except when it comes to D.C. crime, no one is buying what he's selling. As President Trump put it in the Oval Office earlier today, people are scared.
Half of the people here, maybe all of the people here, most of you live in D.C., you are petrified to go out.
Yeah, and don't just take it from the president. Here's some of Schumer's buddies in the liberal media.
In downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen.
I work in D.C. It is dangerous there. You cannot deny that.
Wait, she was mugged? Somebody died? But I thought Schumer said everything was fine. Things are actually so out of control in D.C. that when you look at these videos, this man chucking a Subway sandwich at a federal officer after calling him a fascist, zero respect for law enforcement, plus a waste of a perfectly good footlong, I would say. And get this, Pam Bondi confirming that the guy, 37-year-old Sean Dunn, worked at the Department of Justice. He's now, thankfully, been fired. Also, thankfully, this type of garbage under President Trump is not going to be put up with anymore. Here's the new U.S. Attorney for Washington, Jeanine Pirro, announcing a felony assault charge against the Subway slinger. And not for assault with a delicious weapon, but for assaulting a federal officer.
He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony, assault on a police officer. And we're going to back the police to the hilt. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
Where the sun doesn't shine, Subway slinger, you might be headed to the slammer for a very long time. Here with reaction, managing editor at MRC TV, Brittany Hughes, along with the founder of Marco Polo, Garrett Ziegler. Brittany, first of all, you live in Washington. Schumer says that everything's really great. Do you agree?
Things haven't been great in Washington, D.C. for a very long time, and anybody that actually lives there in the area understands this. Look, Chuck Schumer does not go in the places where a lot of this crime is happening. And of course, what we've seen, not only in Washington, D.C., but in other, blue-controlled cities all across the United States, is that crime is slowly starting to spread to the areas where it wasn't historically as prevalent. But when you look at where crime is predominantly concentrated, it is in areas where Chuck Schumer would never go. This is a man who has, walls around his house and tons of armed security. Of course, we're not supposed to own guns, but he has plenty of them at his disposal. The reality is, look, the city of Washington, D.C. has a murder rate that is 7 times higher than New York cities. This is an incredibly dangerous place to be. And if you actually look at some of the real journalists who have gone around and talked to residents of D.C., particularly in some of these crime-ridden areas, they are happy to see a heavier police presence. This is something that's been ignored by Democrats for years.
Yeah, except for Nancy Pelosi, who put a wall around her house. I guess she wasn't ignoring. Garrett, you've been so tough in taking on Hunter Biden. And guess what? No surprise, he's in trouble again. Peddles this lie that the First Lady, this is despicable. I don't even like repeating it, but he claimed, Hunter, that she met the president through Jeffrey Epstein. The First Lady's legal team put him on $1 billion legal notice over false, defamatory, disparaging information. So Hunter goes on a podcast and says this.
We're here maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That's not going to happen.
Garrett, no respect at all.
No, and the same vices that his father has are ones that Hunter has. You know, Joe's hubris and delusion is what caused the Democrat Party to implode. So you would think that Hunter would step back, have some introspection, some humility, and recognize that the very vices that did his father in are now going to do him in by getting him embroiled in another costly lawsuit. He cried to a federal judge in March to get his suit dropped against me and the nonprofit research group I lead. So I don't know who is going to bail him out this time. It might be another Democrat hack.
Well, we're rooting for you. He's going to get another sugar daddy, I guess, to your point. We're rooting for you in your suit. Brittany, thanks for coming on. And I hope the First Lady takes the Bidens to the cleaners. Thanks for coming on. Quick break on the other side. Big summit tomorrow. We preview it right here at Newsmax next.